friends. My name is David McLeod. I am your life mastery coach and author of the book, A Life to Die For. I'm also one of the new senior partners at the Wellness Universe and a collaborative author on the best-selling series, The Wellness Universe Guide to Complete Self-Care. This is Life Mastery TV, in case you are mistaken or this is where you are. So welcome. And today we are going to be embarking on episode number 205. Today's topic is called Joy, Fulfillment, and Inner Peace. Now, I don't know about you, but I think happiness and fulfillment are at the top of most people's priority lists. And I think that most people would agree with that statement. But judging from the pain and suffering we see in the world, it seems that many of those people are having a hard time with achieving that. In fact, sometimes by a pretty long shot. So it's natural for us to ask questions like, what's missing from the equation? Why is there so much suffering in the world? Why are so many people living unhappy lives full of depression and despair? Well, these are good questions to ask for sure. And we're probably going to be talking about some of those questions as we proceed. But I think, are they really the right questions to be asking? Maybe it's time for us to take a little step back and consider the possibility that joy, fulfillment, and inner peace are actually a choice. Now, what do you think of that idea? In a world where we're conditioned to believe that our level of happiness depends upon our environment or our circumstances or external events, it's easy to see that you might balk at that idea. But what if the conditioning is all wrong? What if those messages are all wrong? And maybe the idea of choice is actually correct. Intriguing, wouldn't you say? Well, for today's episode of Life Mastery TV, I've invited a certified meditation and mindfulness instructor and gong master, and I'm sure we're going to learn more about that later, to join me to share his wisdom on this topic. As someone who has personally experienced the transformational rewards of reduced stress, increased inner peace, and improved focus and efficiency, Jere Friedman is more than qualified to guide us in enhancing relationships, activating intuition, and stepping into a fully authentic life. So please join me in saying hello to my new friend, Jere Friedman. Welcome, Jere, and thank you so much for agreeing to come on the show today.
Well, David, thank you so much. It's a joy to be here with you, and thank you for inviting me to be a guest today and to talk about the book that we contributed to, Transcendent Men, Real Stories, and like you said, joy, inner peace, fulfillment. So, and more.
Right. Well, thank you for mentioning that. It's true. Jere and I were co-collaborators on this book. It's volume 4 in a series by Diana Leader, and it's called Find Your Voice, Save Your Life. And they're all excellent books. And we were fortunate enough to be part of volume 4, which was called Transcendent Men, Real Stories. And I don't know about you, Jere, but I found that trying to consider myself a transcendent man was a bit of a challenge. How was that for you?
You spoke about that several times in our group meetings as we were working on our chapters and that sort of thing. And it really gave me a lot. What you brought up about transcendence. What does that mean? I thought that was a great question, and I think it means something different for every one of us. But it really gave me pause to look at how I see transcendence. I actually went to the online dictionary to look up the word, and the definition that I found that resonated with me spoke about overcoming some challenge, overcoming some obstacle, and that really resonated with me in terms of what I was writing about. My chapter is called Becoming the Man That My Children Would Want to Know. But every one of us, every man that contributed a chapter to this book has his own story of overcoming some challenge. In many cases, my own in particular, self-induced challenges in many ways. And in some ways, challenges that were brought about by circumstances or family or life issues or whatever. And this actually, it really does tie back to our topic of joy, fulfillment, and inner peace. It's transcend, we all have the opportunity and the ability to transcend the suffering that you spoke about, the conditioning that you spoke about, that we're all subject to, which is really, it's a story. It's just a misidentification that we have to suffer or that we have to struggle or whatever. And you talked about choice, which I agree with. We all do have a choice from moment to moment in what our life experience is all about. But I want to take it one step further, and then we can unpack this a little bit. Joy, fulfillment, and inner peace, that's our birthright. We have it already. It's available to each and every one of us all the time, no matter what. Absolutely. Now, life swirls around us and we get distracted and we allow our thoughts or our beliefs or our conditionings to take us away from that. And that's easy to do. There's no question about it. But the reality is that if we slow down, listen to the crickets, and we'll explain to the viewers what we're talking about. But if we slow down and listen to the crickets a little bit, we can, if we choose, get right back in touch with the inner peace that's always there and available for us at all times.
Right. Yeah, beautifully said. I mean, you've covered so much in that brief 2 minutes statement that you were doing. The first thing I want to do is I'm just going to pop a link into the chat there, so people, if they want to grab a copy of that book, that's my short link to it. That'll take you right to Amazon. You can pick up a copy, and believe me, it's an awesome book. And even though the title has to do with transcendent men, I don't think this book is limited to men only. In fact, we would really love for lots of women to read this book as well, because I think there's a lot in there. But yeah, you said so many things there. You said basically our story. I think part of the thing is our story. We tend to identify with our story. We tend to think I am my story, and so you said it's a misidentification, and that's absolutely correct, I believe. And this is part of our challenge as human beings living in this world. If we can learn how to represent that we have a story rather than imagining ourselves as being the story, then we can start to remember that we're the ones who created the story in the first place. And consequently, we're the ones who get to write the subsequent chapters and maybe create a whole new story that could be even more beautiful than what we have in the past. And the other thing that you said that I think is really, really important is this notion of choice is something that we make choices every single moment. And I would say for most of us, about 90% of those choices are unconscious. We don't even know we're doing them. You know, we are kind of programmed to behave in a certain way, to show up in a certain way. I mean, how many people think about putting one foot in the front of the other when they're walking, or getting out of bed in the morning? We just do it. It's all automatic. And yet a choice had to be made in order to be able to do that. If you could understand just how deep this concept of choice goes, wow, you could just all of a sudden elevate your consciousness multitudes, orders of magnitude. So anyway, that's just my thought about it. What do you think?
That's beautiful. And I want to respond to that, but in fairness to the viewers, before we go any further, I want to explain, before we came on live and we were doing some sound checking and everything, and David said, do I hear cicadas in the background? And I said, yeah, I've got some crickets in the room here chirping. And so we were talking about that. Actually, it's a nice reminder just to slow down and pay attention and be present, which is, what meditation and mindfulness are all about. We'll come back to that in a moment, I hope.
Right.
Okay. That was just to tell the viewers what we were talking about there. Yes, that programming, that automatic, and we just run on autopilot so much of our life. And I love your analogy. I certainly don't think about it, and it wouldn't work very well to think about having to take one step in front of the other, except in certain circumstances, obviously, being careful where we step or how we do something. But there is so much of the way we go through life, the way we experience life, the way we think about ourselves and the world around us, other people, circumstances, this and that and the other. And we don't really understand that those were programmed into us by our experience and as part of our coping mechanism, how we go through life. And we learn these things at a very early age, very early. My wife and I, we have a beautiful little 3-year-old granddaughter, and we love spending time with her. And it's fascinating watching how quickly they learn and incorporate what we say or what she sees us doing and all of that. And it's just remarkable how we learn this stuff so fast. The way I describe it with my clients, my coaching clients, and my meditation students as well, it's, think of your computer. We're all doing this on a computer right now, okay? Now, we're using, this is not Zoom, but you're using some sort of software, David, that makes this work, that makes my camera and microphone pick up my images and my voice and yours and send it out to the whole world somehow by magic, okay? That software that's what we interface with, okay? I had to jump through a bunch of hoops to be able to talk to you right now, and it was confusing to me until I figured it out. And the same thing with the viewers. They had to click on links and register. Okay, that's software that we all interface with. But there's something else that's running the computer in the background. It's called an operating system. And if you're on a Mac, it's the iOS. And if you're on a PC, it's probably a Windows operating system.
Right.
We don't see that. We don't know what's going on, but it's running the show in the background. As human beings, we have the same thing. We've got this internal programming that's kind of running the show, so that if someone says something to me with a certain tone of voice, I'm going to respond in a certain way. If they're kind, if I perceive them as kind or friendly, I'll respond in one way. If I perceive them as threatening, I'm going to respond in a different way. There's something in the background that's running those responses that I'm not consciously aware of. The good news, David, and I know you know this, the good news is it's reprogrammable. We can unlearn our old ways of thinking, our old beliefs about ourselves. I'm not good enough. I'm lacking in some way. I'm inferior in some way. I can unlearn that and learn, guess what? I am a divine being having a human experience on this planet in this lifetime. And I can live my life from that point of view instead of otherwise.
Right. Yeah, nicely said. And I think you hit a very, very key point in that. You say, if I perceive you as kind, or if I perceive you as a threat. Well, perception is the key point there. And what I would like to say is it's not even necessarily just perception, But every perception, everything I think, say, do, or feel is really all about me. And when I see something, there is no way I can see it without putting my own filters and my own judgments and my own interpretations and my own conclusions on it. So if I say I perceive you as kind, really what I'm telling you is I see you showing up a certain way and I'm making the judgment, I'm drawing the conclusion, I'm interpreting you as kind. And you may be that way, you may not be. But my perception is what's going to influence how I respond. So that's another area where we elevate our awareness. We become more aware of how we perceive things, of how our filters restrict the way we might welcome things into our lives. How often, for example, do we simply have a knee-jerk reaction to something and don't even realize that we've done that until after our reaction has created a scenario that makes the situation even worse? You know, it takes a lot of work to unravel all that stuff and get to the place where you can just pause, listen to the crickets, and then respond.
Beautiful. That's it. There's so much there that is just so true and so real. And yeah, judgments is what it's all about. Judging things as good or bad, right or wrong, and you know, being discerning about certain things is one thing, obviously. But again, putting things in that good, bad, right, wrong box, and then that leads us down a certain path. And I loved what you just said about taking that pause. And that, if we can jump into what I love teaching about as a meditation teacher, that's what meditation has provided me, is just a practice, a training, that no matter what is going on, I can, if I choose, remember how to stop for a moment, take a breath, and that's what puts me back into my center, okay, and then choose how I want to respond in that moment. That's exactly what you just said. And that when I can remember and step into that practice in real life, because that's what meditation is really training us for, is what's happening to us in real life in real time. And I can be on a phone call or I can receive that email, and rather than just react or respond, react as I might ordinarily do that, if I can take a breath, listen to the cricket, I can choose how to respond. And that has aided me infinitely in all areas of my life. I still have a law practice. I deal with some stressful situations as an attorney from time to time. I'm a husband, a parent, a grandparent, a member of the community. We live in challenging times, and there's a lot of things going on that we can judge as good, bad, right, wrong, and upsetting. And we can take a step back and say, well, wait a minute now, is that really, or is it just me saying it is what I think it is?
Exactly. Yeah, that's a beautiful point. And one thing I want to point out, other people I'm sure who are watching this or listening to the recording will probably notice that you speak in a way that I really, really resonate with, and something that I think a lot more people could benefit from, and that is I statements. You speak as if you're owning for yourself the actual experience, and the beauty of that, and many people may not see this, is when you speak that way, I don't feel like you're trying to project anything onto me, right? And consequently, I don't feel like I need to defend myself for showing up the way I show up, which might happen to be a little bit different from you. The beauty of I statements is that I can just simply be here and be present and hear you speak and not take any of it on. And this is something that I try to teach people, but sometimes they just don't get it. Have you had that experience too? Have you tried to teach people this stuff?
I know that in some of the work that I do, especially the men's groups that I lead, I mean, this is something that I had to learn, and that to make I statements, because I can talk about my experience and my perception and my beliefs. I have no idea what your experience is, David.
Right.
And yeah, it's a hard thing to learn, so it's a hard thing to teach. Right. Just to say, this is my experience. It may or may not be yours. What I'm sharing with you may or may not work for you. The things I share with other people, some of them love them and adapt them, and it really works for them. And for some people, it doesn't, and that's fine too. And I've learned to allow myself to be okay with them.
Did you learn that through the Mankind Project, by any chance?
No, actually. Although I have not participated in the Mankind Project. I've heard from many men that it is a phenomenal experience, and it's highly recommended. I actually learned it in the program that I attended at the University of Santa Monica, where I got my master's in spiritual psychology. Right. And so a lot of what I am talking about today, and that I share as a coach and otherwise a teacher, is bringing those practices and principles into the awareness of other people.
Yeah. Well, thank you for bringing up the spiritual psychology side of things. I find it interesting that the word psychology itself begins with the word psyche, which actually is Greek for soul. And what I find interesting is we have to add the word spiritual in there, even though it's supposed to be the ology of the soul, if you like, the study of the soul. It's interesting.
David, you're one of the few people who know that is the root of psychology. It's the study of the soul. Now, the story that I learned is that when psychology first came into being, or whatever, when people started exploring this area, I think it was like in the late 1800s. And they found some real benefit in going into what is a soul? What does it mean to have a soul? Who are we? Why are we here? Okay, some pretty fundamental questions. And by and by, they wanted to be accepted as a science. It's an ology, right? That's a science. And so other scientists in the medical profession at that time said, well, wait a minute, in a science, you have to be able to measure something. Right. In order to demonstrate that this is a worthwhile pursuit or that this works. How do you measure a soul? That's a pretty good question. Right. And that was very challenging. Well, what they found was, we can measure behavior. We can measure changes in a person's behavior if we work with them in some of these areas. So psychology kind of got a little sidetracked or diverted into ways that we can change people's behavior. Now, that's a really good thing. And I spent 6 years in intense psychoanalysis and other counseling. Psychology is there's some benefit there. But they lost the soul. And so spiritual psychology for the last 40 or so years has been putting the soul back into psychology. Right. Who am I? Why am I here? And how do I make a meaningful difference on this planet in this lifetime?
Yeah. Well, that's great. And I do think that, you're right. It's difficult to use science to measure anything spiritual. But as you say, we can, it's like, I don't know if you're aware of the, what is it called? There's this institute in Petaluma, California. It starts with O, I think. I can't remember the name of the organization, but they talk a lot about this kind of stuff, and they've had some amazing speakers show up, and including people like Nassim Haramein. I don't know if you know him, but he's a physicist who really explains a lot of stuff about the quantum mechanics and how it all fits into the spiritual realm. It's fascinating stuff. And so I think what's happening is science in the physical world is starting to get connected to the notion that, wait a minute, all of this is consciousness. All of this is the energy field, all of it. I mean, it's just all amazing stuff. And so science and spirituality are starting to slowly dance together. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I think it's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's one of the things on my, never ending and never, will never be completed reading list, but is to pick up some of the books on exactly this. There are a lot of quantum physicists who are doing some incredible research and writing about exactly the connections
Right.
that you just articulated. Yeah.
Right. And what I also think is that when we have a good sense of who we really are, and that is, as you mentioned earlier, a divine, spiritual, magnificent being of light and love having a temporary human experience on the physical plane, when we understand that, then we begin to see the whole world in a whole new way, the whole universe in a whole new way. And we begin just naturally starting to connect back into our birthright, as you said, of joy, fulfillment, and inner peace. So I know you talked a little bit about meditation. Would you like us or help us understand a little bit more about how meditation and I think you said mindfulness was the other one, how you bring those together to help people become more connected to their joy, fulfillment, and inner peace?
There's a number of ways. I am a certified meditation and mindfulness instructor. I do teach meditation and mindfulness classes. And you also mentioned at the in the introduction that I'm a gong master. So I suppose we should explain that. Some people call it's sound healing. There's many different types of sound healing. I play some very large gongs. David said I should have had a gong as a background, and I could have done that, but chose to have the book since we have a connection with that. And the gongs, sound healing, it's all about vibration.
Mm-hmm.
And getting us out of our conscious mind that is just constantly churning thoughts, not necessarily getting us out of that, but really even kind of turning it around and taking a look at it. Sitting in meditation, I'm going to dispel a myth that I think has kept a lot of people away from practicing meditation. The myth is, or the misconception or misbelief, is that meditation is about stopping the mind from thinking, clearing the mind of thoughts. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, that's impossible. Okay? That would be like having my eyes open and saying, don't see, don't see, don't see. My eyes can't not see. That's their job. Their one and only job is to receive light and focus it on the optic nerve, and that sends an electrical signal to some place in my brain that creates an image that I think I see. Okay? So my eye can't not see, and my mind can't not think. The mind, it has one job, which is to produce thoughts. Depending on the numbers that you look at, 60, 80, 120,000 thoughts a day. And when I see those numbers, my next thought is, thank God that I'm not aware of most of them, because the ones that,
Right.
the ones that I am aware of, for the most part, are not. They're pretty crappy, right?
Yeah. Right.
Okay. So meditation, all meditation is paying attention in real time, without judgment, to some object of focus. That's it. The focus can be your breath, it can be a mantra, it can be a picture, a candle flame, a sound, music, whatever. What happens is, after a not very long time, our mind is going to create some thoughts and take our focus away from whatever we're focusing on. And all meditation is all about is just bringing your awareness back to the object of focus over and over and over again. I say it's like training a puppy. Come back, come back, come back.
I don't think of my mind as a puppy, sorry. But I like the visual.
Yeah, a puppy or monkey mind. We call it the monkeys running in the trees, or a runaway train sometimes. What that does for me, and where that's been helpful for me, is, well, there's a lot of aspects that but one thing it does is it down regulates our nervous system. It gets us out of the perpetual fight, flight, or freeze mode that we live in way too much. Okay, not healthy. That induces constant stress, which leads us to dis-ease. So, okay, let's get out of that. Let's calm things down and get into the rest and digest aspect of our nervous system. And that just helps me learn that, yes, I do have a place of inner peace within me, and I can return to that at any time. Come back, take a breath, come back. Okay? And then, okay, the other thing that it has done for me, like I said, I'm meditating, I notice that I'm thinking, my mind has wandered. This is normal. This is the name of the game. Come back, come back. It also helps me to take a look at my thoughts. What am I thinking about? That email that I have to write. I've got an interview with David coming up. I don't, whatever it is, stuff. And it just gives me an opportunity to look at the nature of my thoughts. Okay? So that as I'm out in the real world, and we talked about, someone says or does something and we react to that, I can, there's that little disconnect. I have an awareness. Now, wait a minute. Do I really need to think this about that person? Or do I really need to think that he or she is threatening me or doesn't understand me in some way, or whatever it is? Maybe that's not true. Maybe that's just a story. Well, what are the other possibilities here? Now we get into this world of choice that you talked about, David. Okay, what are the other possibilities?
Right, and so the whole process that you described, I have my own little metaphor that's a little different, but I think maybe you'll like this one. I've shared this with people before. It's kind of like, let's say I'm out walking my dog or something, whatever I'm doing, and I happen to stop and sit down on the grass and just start looking at what's going on, and I happen to glance up and I see some clouds. Well, at first I just see clouds. But as I look at the clouds longer, I begin to see faces. I begin to see bunny rabbits. I begin to see lions chasing deer. All of a sudden, I'm making up a whole story about these clouds, right? And none of those stories are true. It's just my mind having fun with them. And, there's really nothing wrong with that. And that's what we're trying to say here. Meditation is not about making yourself wrong because you just happen to get lost in an entertaining fantasy. The importance of meditation is to recognize, oh, I'm allowing myself to get lost in a fantasy. Can I now stop doing that and just look at the clouds again and just see clouds? And that's what you're talking about, this point of focus. Because it doesn't matter what you focus on. You can focus on a candle flame. You can focus on your breath. You can close your eyes and try and listen to your blood flowing through your body. There's millions of things you can focus your attention on. I guarantee you, after 5 seconds, if you're lucky, you're going to start thinking about what you're focusing on. You're going to start to have a story about it. And there's nothing wrong with the story. It's just what happens. So that's the first thing about meditation that I teach people is lighten up and enjoy the process and recognize it. As you say, I like the training the puppy thing. You have to just return back to the focus, return to focus, return to focus. And it can be a beautiful experience. One thing I've noticed, though, I don't know, maybe you've had this experience too. Sometimes I will be doing something that is so highly focused that there are no thoughts, at least none that I'm aware of. For example, what comes to my mind is when I'm skiing. I'm so focused on following the curvature of the slope and making sure I don't fall down and break my leg that I'm really not thinking about, geez, did I pay that bill? No, it doesn't come up. I've heard people say the same thing about riding a motorcycle, especially extreme riders. They're so focused. So the question is, how can you create a situation for yourself where you're so focused that the thoughts just kind of disappear out of your awareness? It doesn't have to be that complicated. It doesn't have to be something like I just described, like skiing or motorcycle riding or jumping out of an airplane in a parachute or any of that stuff. It could be something as simple as, I don't know, knitting a sweater. You're focusing on those needles and that it could be that. It could be woodworking. I mean, there's so many things you can do where your entire focus is on that thing, that thoughts just kind of fade away. And what you're doing really is you're bringing yourself into the present moment.
That's what mindfulness is all about. And there's a little distinction here. This is my distinction between mindfulness and meditation. A lot of people use the terms interchangeably. I see it as a slight difference. Mindfulness is paying attention in the present moment without judgment.
Right.
And so to give you an example, I try to do it. If I'm slicing vegetables for preparing dinner or putting together my cereal concoction in the morning, okay, all right, simple things like that, okay, is what am I thinking about what I'm doing next, which is, most of the time that's what I'm doing, right? What am I doing next? What am I doing later? Or what did someone say to me yesterday that I'm still pissed off about? But right now, right here, right now, am I just chopping vegetables? Okay. And that's how simple it can be. You mentioned woodworking, and I tell people I'm a recovering woodworker. I was a professional woodworker for a few years. I call that the starving artist period of my life.
Right.
But I do still, enjoy woodworking at times. And I'm actually, we just moved last year and I have a wonderful space where I'm setting up my workshop. There are some moments in woodworking where I must be totally focused as I'm pushing a piece of wood through the saw, okay? Mm-hmm. I have to be paying attention to where my hands are at all times then. Now, when I'm sanding that wood later, my mind is a million miles away because I'm just sanding. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I think what we're talking about here, we're talking about raising awareness, and we're talking about making sure that we bring that full awareness as much as possible to everything that we do. And I think that this speaks to this notion of creating a positive intention for our lives, because that is what ultimately leads to our joy and fulfillment and inner peace. If we have first of all, if we are calm and we get that calmness perhaps through meditation or whatever, maybe you like doing yoga or something, whatever it is that reduces the stress and brings you back to that state of calmness. Once you're in that place, it's much easier, I think, to start thinking about your intention for your life. And then if you can make your intention aligned with the truth of who you really are, then it becomes not just an intention, but a guiding light in your life.
David, I'm so glad you brought up intention. That's probably the first thing that I start off with my coaching clients, is helping them to understand the concept of and the benefit of having a clear, positive intention about everything. And really, what is my intention for having this conversation with you today? My intention is to be myself and to listen and respond and serve other people. Whoever views this this interview, serve them in some way by learning or reinforcing what they already know, or learning something new that might be of benefit to them. What is my intention as I pick up the phone to talk to someone, whether it's in my law situation where I have to call a client or the person on the other side of a transaction that I'm working on? What is my intention in a conversation with my wife or a loved one or whatever? What is my intention in building a piece of furniture to grace our home? That sort of thing. And so many of us go through life without even understanding that we have energy, and we put energy out there, and whatever energy we put into what we're saying or doing or writing, that's going to go through, and that's going to affect other people. And we have no idea where that energy is going. The ripples just go out. But if we understand how we are all connected energetically, if not physically, it makes a difference in this world.
Right.
And so, again, slowing down and having an awareness in a situation, not just of my thoughts, but what am I feeling in my body? Because that tells me a lot. My body doesn't have words, but it sure has feelings. And if I'm feeling tight or constricted about something, if I notice that, I might say, well, what's that all about? Maybe I should open up. Okay. So again, that's what having that awareness and focus is all about.
Yeah, that's great. First, and I want to just remind folks who are on the live presentation, if you have comments or questions, please put them in the chat. We'll do our best to respond to those. This idea of positive intention also has to do with noticing, you talked about the tightness, the clenching kind of thing. How on earth can we grow in this world when we allow ourselves to stay caught up and tight inside that space, that cocoon that we call the comfort zone? We stay there, we live there. For some people, it might look like I don't know, watching TV, drinking a lot of alcohol, smoking drugs. It could be a variety of things, and it might be even less obvious than that. The question is, are you in some kind of an imaginary bubble beyond which you feel a huge amount of fear? That's the question.
Well, yes. The answer is yes. Yes, we some of us call it the ego, the part of us who has a very important job. The ego gets a bad rap, and a lot of people say, "Oh, I got to, get rid of my ego," and da da da. Well, no, because the ego really has a very important job, which is to keep us safe. All right, and the problem, as you mentioned it, is that the ego creates this comfort zone where we think we're safe, and it's based on our experience from an early age, the things that we witness as children before our, mind, our thinking, our rational mind, way before our rational mind is fully, even close to fully developed enough to make sense of this crazy world that we're experiencing with our family and school and whatever. And so we make associations at an early age, and those become our beliefs. And we learn that, well, if I do this, I get punished or yelled at, or it's not safe, I get hurt in some way. But if I do this, it's it's good, and I'm not punished, or I get rewarded, or whatever. So I'm going to do more of this and try to avoid this. And that creates an illusion of a comfort zone. If I can just stay in here, it's okay. What you're getting at, David, is that this is all well and good, but there is no learning. There is no growth. There is no healing of old wounds if we stay locked in here. And fortunately, I was about to say unfortunately, but fortunately, if we learn that we can step out of that comfort zone, we can learn and grow, unlearn old patterns of behavior, old beliefs, old ways of thinking. Like you said, the watching TV, drinking, whatever we do to numb ourselves, okay? And we can transcend, we can transform, we can grow, we can change aspects of our life. We can change, first and foremost, is changing one's relationship with oneself. The more I learn to love myself, that I'm okay, that I am love, I'm loving, I'm lovable, and I'm okay, that I'm enough, that I'm really not lacking in any way. Well, guess what? That changed my relationship with everything else.
That's right. Yeah.
So, and it is hard because it is terrifying for some people to get out of the comfort zone. With good reason, they've had some bad experience when they've done that in the past. Or they're just afraid. We're afraid, the ego is afraid of what it doesn't know. And we don't know what's going to happen if we step out of the comfort zone. We know what's going to happen in here. Same old, same old, same old, same old. Okay. And that's a perceived safety. Now, for some of us, the comfort zone eventually becomes excruciatingly uncomfortable. And we just have to try something different. That's my story. I think that's your story. It's a lot of the stories in our book, and a lot of stories for a lot of other people.
Right. That's true. Yeah. I don't know if it's true or not. I agree with it. I'll put it that way. How about that?
Okay.
I see Ray asked, are you going to lead a meditation? And I'm thinking, that sounds like a statement. I would love it if you would lead a meditation. So here's what I'm going to invite you to do, Jerry. We've just been talking about the comfort zone here. And maybe you can lead us in a 3 or 4 minute meditation on how we can step out of the comfort zone and notice what changes So why don't you take it and just lead that?
Okay. And yeah, I saw that question come in, and my response was, yes, I would love to do this. So wherever you are, whoever you are, I would just invite you to get comfortable. You can be sitting up, lying down, wherever you are. If you're comfortable with your eyes closed, you can allow your eyelids to close. You can allow them to close part way and just have a soft downward focus. Take a long, slow, deep breath in. And let it go. And another long, slow, deep breath in. And let it go. And one more long, slow, deep breath in. Let it go. Just allow your breath to return to its normal pace and rhythm. You don't have to control anything. Just become aware of what you're feeling in your body right now. Just observe. What does it feel like where your body is supported by the chair, the cushion, wherever you're standing or sitting or lying down? Just observe. There's nothing to change. There's nothing to fix. There's nothing good or bad about whatever you're experiencing in your physical body. Just observe. Become aware of any sensations outside the body, the air moving across your skin or texture of clothing against the skin. The temperature, warm, cold, neutral. Again, just observe. Any sounds that you may be experiencing inside your body, inside the room you're in, or outside the room. Again, just observe. There's nothing good or bad, right or wrong about these things. They just are. Now just allow yourself to soften, release, relax. Any tension, any tightness anywhere, just allow it to melt a little bit. Begin to experience in this moment the reality that right here, right now, you are safe. You are at peace. You are love. Become aware of your heart space, the area of your heart itself and the area around the heart, all around it. Just tune in to the loving light and energy that always, always resides in this space deep within you. It's always here. This is who you are. Right here. Right now. And that's all you need. It's always here. It's always available, and you can come back here at any time. You are love. So take a long, slow, deep breath in. And let it go. And when you're ready, you can allow your eyelids to open slowly.
Lovely. You are love. Words of wisdom for all of us to embrace. Beautiful. I think, though, what I'd like to do just before we wrap up is just to talk one more time about this notion of choice. Because all of us, first of all, everybody chose to be here. We all chose to be here. We all chose to participate in that brief meditation. And in that meditation, I believe, I know it's true for me, I'll assume that it's true for others, I chose to believe that it is true that I am love. And when I embrace that belief, I notice how easy it is for me to choose joy, fulfillment, and inner peace. Because as Jere said at the beginning, that is our birthright. Oh, and I see Ellen posted a link there. If you want to join a meditation retreat, you can click on that link and go and join Jere for that. But Jere, we're getting close to our time here, and I want to make sure that I give you a chance to say something as a closing message to people before I wrap up here.
The one thing I just want to kind of underscore, bold, italics, what you just said about choice, and you're probably familiar with Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, and the great quote in there is, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but other people, life can take away every imaginable freedom from a human being except one, and that is the freedom to choose our life experience, how we see the world, how we see ourselves. That cannot be taken away by anyone. Not so easy to put into practice at times, but that's the message. And the other thing I'll say is I do offer, for anyone that's interested, a complimentary 90-minute coaching session. I'll put my email address in the chat box here, and feel free to contact me. If you just want to have a follow-up, any questions or anything, and my wife Ellen is also helping me out. I do offer what I call a Zoom gong, which is playing the gongs and sound healing over the internet. I am in the process of setting that back up again. We moved last year, but I will be doing that again soon. So I'll put my website information in here as well. And if you want information about upcoming events that I'm doing, that would be great. But I'd love, oh, there she goes. She's doing it for me. She's.
I like that, gong to heaven.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I was very fortunate to get that one. All right, David, thank you so much. I've really had a good time with this conversation. I knew that I would. So.
Right. Well, and I want to thank everybody for showing up on the show today and being present. Your live presence is really what makes this go so well. And I'd like to also remind people you can watch recordings of this and every other show on my website at lifemasterytv.com, life-mastery-tv.com. Remember, joy, fulfillment, and inner peace are your birthright. If you reflect back upon your nature as a tiny human when you were first born onto this planet, you might be able to remember it as your natural state back then. When you peel away all the layers of conditioning and self-limitation you may have taken on over the years, you will also quickly get back to the truth of who you really are and why you are here. And when you do that, you'll reconnect to your innate joy, fulfillment, and inner peace. Friends, I invite you to remember my life mastery mantra on a daily basis. It goes like this. It's real simple. I gratefully forgive the imperfect being I have been in the past. I gratefully accept the magnificent being I am right now. And I gratefully welcome the evolved being that I am becoming in each new moment. So I want to thank you once again. Until we meet again, my name is David McLeod, your Life Mastery Coach, wishing you love, light, and blessings on your continuing journey. Bye-bye for now.